espresso martinis are about as popular as they've ever been. Or are they? That espresso martini you're getting at the bar probably doesn't even have real espresso in it. In this video, I'll be discussing my class action law. Oh, we can't do that? Okay. In this video, I'll be making my own espresso martinis with real espresso and showing you how to do the same. To clear things up, I don't really have beef with cold brew concentrate-based espresso martinis. Adding a full espresso bar to a regular bar is a big jump in complexity, and not all bartenders are baristas, believe it or not. Cold brew concentrate espresso martinis can certainly be delicious, and they're way more accessible. But this is a coffee channel, and we're surrounded by espresso machines, so we're here to make a real espresso martini. So, what's the recipe? The original espresso martini recipe is credited to bartender Dick Bradsell at the Soho Brasserie in London sometime around the year 1983, and we'll be using his recipe today. The story goes that a young fashion model, rumors say Kate Moss, came up to his bar and demanded a drink that would, quote, wake me up and something me up. And Dick did just that, whipping up the first espresso martini on the spot. The recipe is simply 2 ounces of vodka, a double shot of espresso, 0.5 ounces of coffee liqueur, originally Kahlua, and 0.5 ounces of simple syrup. Shake, strain, and serve with 3 coffee beans floated on top. Super simple. Now, as for our ingredients, for the most part, vodka is vodka, so I picked the one with the coolest bottle that was also made by Jason Momoa, because why not? Our coffee liqueur is the one place we're deviating from the original recipe, using Mr. Black instead of Kahlua. It's still a coffee liqueur, but it has a bit more of a refined coffee flavor and less sweetness, which makes it a better match for good espresso. I've also brought in a lemon to throw in a lemon twist if I see fit. While this is a standard part of a classic martini, it may seem a bit out of place with an espresso martini. This might be true with your classic dark, caramely sweet take on the drink, but I'm curious to see how it might pair with a brighter coffee. This takes us to our last ingredient, and without a doubt the most important, if the most often overlooked: coffee. For this little taste test, I picked a small variety of coffees that I felt could all make a good espresso martini in their own way. For the classic smooth dark roast, what you'd normally expect to find in an espresso martini, I picked our old standby, Kickstep. I also brought a fairly dark decaf from Roseline to test how decaf melds in this drink. I don't always want to be out until 3 a.m., okay? On the brighter side, I have 2 other options. A rich yet bright Indonesian coffee from Coava, and a super bright fruity Ethiopian Guiji from Roseline. Both of these are fruitier coffees than you'd probably expect to find in espresso martini, but I think that could be good, or it might be gross, we'll find out. At least to start off, I'll be pulling all of these coffees at a 1 to 1.5 ratio with an 18-gram dose, giving us about 27 grams of espresso out, just about 1 ounce of liquid espresso. So far, this is my favorite proportion of coffee in this drink. The 1 to 1.5 ratio is more concentrated than I normally pull, but in this case, I want to get as much coffee flavor as possible without diluting the final cocktail. With all that out of the way, let's get to tasting these things. That is really good. I've had a handful of espresso martinis with real espresso, but I've always just kind of assumed that the coffee in them wasn't that good, and this sort of confirms that in a big way. This still feels very much like a dessert drink, but it's not really too sweet, and it's very coffee forward. Pretty confident that most of the ones I've had have used Kahlua, and the Mr. Black pairs way nicer with this Kickstep than I imagine Kahlua would. Instead of that sort of syrupy sweetness that you would normally expect to get, it's a more subdued sweetness, and you're getting way more coffee flavor. And I feel like some of the notes from the Kickstep match pretty well with what you get out of Mr. Black. Especially contrasting this with many of the cold brew espresso martinis I've had, this is really delicious. Like, the coffee flavor is just on a different level, and it's really nice and really creamy. And I don't really want to become an espresso martini guy, but it's pretty good. All in all, this is very smooth, kind of what you would expect from an espresso martini, but it feels significantly tastier than what I've gotten in bars. No surprises here, just a good cocktail. feel like with this one, as you might expect from a decaf, there's a little bit less coffee punch. The brightness and volatile compounds that sort of tend to disappear when you make a decaf, that's still present here, but you're not gonna notice it nearly as much as you would drinking a straight shot or a cup of filter coffee. Because of the sugar and the coffee liqueur, it's kind of subdued, and it still has a nice level of complexity to it. Yeah, it is really nice. I feel like if you handed this to me at a bar, I wouldn't peg it as being a decaf coffee, which is a testament to both how well a decaf can work in an espresso martini, but also how good Roseline's Decaf Colombia is. You're still getting some light floral notes in the background, but it's it's sort of a medium dark decaf. So you're still getting that caramely sweetness, but there's a little more complexity there than we got with Kickstep. And overall, it's still a fantastic drink. It's really good. There's nothing more to say about it. It's just, again, a good drink. I don't think I would do the lemon twist on this. I feel like that citrusiness would be a little out of place with this coffee, but I think on the next one, we'll give it a go. Whoa. This one is way more interesting. I picked this coffee partly because it still has some dark sweet notes in it, brown sugar, but it lists lemon meringue and fig as part of the notes. And so you're still getting that baseline of round, nice, smooth sweetness, but right up front, that sort of lemony, almost herbal note comes in there. It's almost like there's like rosemary nearby. It's really good, especially for a Sumatran coffee. I'm used to getting more just sort of like earthy, purely herbal notes from that. This is complex and bright and really tasty. But it's not so fruity or so bright that it contrasts too harshly with the Mr. Black. It balances really nicely. I'm a little worried about the natural Ethiopian single origin, but this, I feel like, is probably gonna be my favorite one. Because it has those lemon meringue notes, I feel like gotta try it with the lemon on there. Skeptical of this. Oof. This is even better. The lemon hitting your nose right up front is really nice, and it does meld really well with the overall character of the drink. But it really brings those lemon meringue kind of sweet, citrusy flavors forward. I feel like that's gonna be my favorite one. But we have one more to try, so let's give the natural, fruity Ethiopian coffee a shot. Okay, yeah, I mean, it smells a lot fruitier right off the bat. Yeah, it's not terrible, but there's a little bit of what I was worried about here. In my espresso tonic video, a flavor combination that I referred to as garbage water, I feel like is a little bit present here. A sort of like sweet, funky, aromatic thing. It's almost there. Something, I don't know if it's just a shot I pulled, but there's some level of bitterness coming through at the very end. But you are getting the sort of fruity sweetness, you are getting the floral notes, but the way that those fruit notes are jiving with the Mr. Black is not quite a perfect match. I do need to try this with the lemon twist because I'm hoping that will save it. I really don't know if this is gonna make it better or worse. It smells really good. It does bring it together, but it's sort of a totally different drink. Where some of these other ones are sort of like desserty or like verging on like liquid tiramisu almost. This is kind of a whole different thing. I need to like think about this. It's really good. The lemon definitely did save it. But this reminds me of some kind of dessert and I just can't put my finger on it. It's a totally different drink. It's a completely different thing. Whereas this Coava was sort of a slightly more complex, more fruity version of what we already had. This feels like a totally different thing in a really good way. And you get just way more brightness. It's just lingering on the tongue with a sort of bright floral flavor and aroma that is really pleasant. But this, compared to the other ones we made and compared to your average espresso martini that you're getting, is a whole different thing. And I'm pretty into it. It's crazy the degree to which the lemon saved that. I was hoping it would. It's like a dessert espresso tonic, almost. And that sounds kind of bad. But it's kind of really good. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know if this is the one I would pick. If I wanted an espresso martini, which I don't so bad at this point, I've had a few of them, but if I did, I feel like I would pick the Coava, just because I feel like it melds so nicely with the Mr. Black, with the other flavors there, but it's still bringing some complexity and some floral notes without sort of breaking the mold. But this is really interesting. Where the other ones are sort of comfortingly sweet and warm, this is lively. Like it's borderline refreshing, which is weird to say, but it's really good. I'm coming away from this surprised, but not necessarily surprised in the way that I expected to be. I thought some of these were gonna be kind of gross. I kind of thought the natural or the Ethiopian coffee was gonna be kind of gross. These are all good as espresso martinis in their own way. And especially compared to espresso martinis that I've had at bars, the ones made with espresso, the espresso is just not pulled to the standard that maybe you would want it to be. And the ones that are made with cold brew, they can be all right, but you're dealing with cold brew. Cold brew has its own set of limitations, its own set of flavors. I'm not that into cold brew. You're losing a lot of the fun, volatile compounds that you get with fresh coffee. This is one of the really cool hidden perks of having a home espresso machine, which is that you can make espresso martinis yourself. And you can make them way tastier without that much effort than you would get at a bar anyway. It's a pretty simple cocktail on all. The hard part is having espresso on hand. And if you already have that, then it's a really fun cocktail to make and kind of a huge flex if you have house guests over, but more importantly, really tasty. Hopefully this very coffee-focused taste test gave you some ideas for your next espresso martini, or reminded you that you can make these things at home and you don't need to go to a bar and spend $20 a drink to annoy your bartender. If you have your own recipe, I would genuinely love to see it in the comments below. Do you stick with Kahlua? Do you throw an orange twist in the mix? Are you using gin? The more of you comment, the more likely it is that I can convince Clive to let me spend another day on set drinking cocktails. For more taste tests and espresso experiments, tap subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.